So we'll start off with the easy part here. Just going to ask each of you to introduce yourselves, and I'm just going to go in order of the way you all appear on my screen here. So Quincy, if you would like to just introduce yourself, your title and your company, and your role with the fund.
Yes, my name is Quincy Miller. I am the president at Eastern Bank, and I'm one of the 19 initial founders at the new Commonwealth Fund.
All right. Paul?
Paul Francisco, Chief Diversity Officer, State Street Corporation, one of the 19 founders of the fund and part of the executive committee as well.
All right. And Desiree?
Desiree Ralls-Morrison, General Counsel of Boston Scientific and one of the 19 founders of the new Commonwealth Fund.
And I'm going to brag also that Desiree is a member of our board of directors. Paul has been, he's actually, I think, a quadruple threat, has gone through the associates program, fellows, NGE, and C-suite, and Quincy's been a member of our C-suite program. And so I'm just so thankful that you all are here today. The new Commonwealth Fund certainly it garnered a lot of attention when it was first launched this summer, but I know that something like this doesn't just happen overnight. Maybe you all can share the stories of both how the fund was formed, but maybe some of the thinking and some of the factors that led to it being formed as quickly and as publicly as it was.
Sure.
No, Quincy, if you want to, or Desiree, if you want to start off with that.
Quincy, why don't you start?
Okay, sure. So, really this fund, it did come together, fairly organically, I would say, really from a couple text messages about a week and a half after the killing of George Floyd, with the message of, why don't we bring together some Black and brown corporate leaders who are all dealing with, an emotional time for, I think, all of us, unlike anything that we'd lived through, and talk about what we could do. And that's really how it began, literally on a text string on, I think, a Thursday or a Friday. That Sunday, we had our first meeting, came together with 9 of us and said, who else can, we want to bring into this discussion? And the discussion really was, what can we do? How can we use our influence? We were hearing from corporations, our corporations. We're hearing from people across the community saying, what can we do in this moment of racial equity? And that's really what got the conversation started.
Yeah, and I can just add, for me personally, I was going through, and I think all of us were also going through this self-reflection of what can I do? Not just what can we do through our companies, but what can I personally do? I remember after the George Floyd killing, just feeling, it's not our first time dealing with these issues, right? But just feeling this overwhelming sense of, am I doing enough with my talents and my skills? I actually even reached out to Ben Crump to sort of see if there was something that he needed that I could offer, because I just felt so helpless and felt as though I wasn't necessarily using everything that I had to offer to fight this fight in the way that I should. And so the text messages that Quincy's talking about and the emails happened at just the right time when I was also, and I think many of us were going through our own self-reflection of what else we could do.
Yeah.
And if I could add the same, for me was, when I got the first text, I know it was all in. From a personal perspective, I was dealing with all kinds of feelings, but from a professional perspective, I was trying to figure out how my organization was going to respond and how I was going to align our leadership in terms of what we needed to do. And so this was an opportunity like no other, being able to have 19 of us come together that quickly and to all agree on an approach that has yielded, our first round of grants, $1 million round of grants. It's unbelievable in a couple of months. And so, but this is the power of collaboration. This is the power of coalition. This is what we can do as a community. as Black and brown, professionals. And we have the power, we have the influence, and we typically haven't leveraged it and used it in this collective way. And this is the first time where we had that opportunity. And, it was just amazing to see how our organizations reacted positively to this, and let us do our thing, let us lead, and trusted us with this opportunity to do that for our own people.
And it's funny, Desiree and Paul, you both mentioned in your remarks something that I hear from our participants all the time. On one hand, am I doing enough? Right? Am I in the right place right now in my corporate role? Am I doing enough when there's a need in the street, so to speak? And then on the other hand, Paul, to your point, I can't tell you the number of times that we've heard from participants and alumni saying that my company wants to do something, and as one of the senior most Black and brown people in the organization, they're looking to me for a solution or for some direction. And so, how did you navigate some of those conversations internally? Both mobilizing folks within the company to say, hey, this is something that we can do, and getting the corporate support behind that.
So there are two sides to this, right? One is the emotional side that you carry as a person of color, and that you have to deal with on a daily basis, and the weight that your skin color brings to bear on your daily lives, and you have to grapple with that. So the way I looked at it is, yes, there is an emotional toll that we have to pay in order to be in corporate, that we have to, in order to be present, in order to do what we do. But this is the time to seize that moment, right? And to say, I am going to then use this leverage for the greater good, and take this opportunity to get my company to really do something significant and impactful. And yes, as a senior leader of color, that is a burden that I am happy to carry, right? Because ultimately it's going to have an impact on those communities that I care about, right? And those people that look like me that are being, quite frankly, targeted in our streets, in our communities. And so this is an opportunity to sort of, double down on that emotional toll, but actually make something out of it, and get our organizations to partner with us in this effort.
Desiree, do you want to add to that?
Sure. I was going to say, I think all 19 of us honestly ran to the fire, right? It was a welcome opportunity. And I think, listen, these are new conversations in the workplace, but they're not new experiences for any of us, right? We've dealt with these issues every single day and managed to compartmentalize them, come to work and be our best selves, but deal with many of the issues that we've been talking about every single day. And so, I think, for all of us, this was a welcome opportunity to say, this is a leadership role that I've been playing all along, but now I have the opportunity to do it in a completely different way, at a different scale, because we have entire corporations, companies that are ready to hear it. And, I think it just created an opportunity to lead in a different way that all of us, embraced wholeheartedly. And importantly, we've always realized, again, these are all seasoned executives. We've realized the importance and the significance of the roles that we play in our companies. There's often just one like us, right? We realize that if we succeed, that creates opportunities for others. And if we fail, then that could close the door for others. And, this was an opportunity to be a facilitator, to be a leader, to be, a mentor in a different way, a mentor in some respects to our white colleagues as well, and just create a different kind of pathway for opportunities for our Black and brown communities.
Yeah, and I would just add that, you've, for many years, I've heard throughout corporate America, bring your authentic self to work. And the reality for a lot of Black and brown professionals is you brought maybe most of your authentic self to work, but really not all of your authentic self to work, right? And I think that's what this moment in our country has opened up, is the ability to really have an open dialogue about race in America that has never happened, at least in my generation. I don't think in the country, and definitely not in the corporate executive suite, right? Not in boardrooms. Those conversations have not happened. Even with all the philanthropy and good that many corporations have done, that's the conversation that has eluded us. And that is the opportunity that the reality is every professional of color, no matter what level they're at, has an opportunity and now a responsibility to talk that through. And that takes a great amount of vulnerability. I know for many people, I've shared stories about myself that I've never shared with anybody before during this moment.
Yeah.
But we've shared that and we've done that because, we've also heard we've done that because we don't want this to be another moment, right? We want to actually see real change. And that's going to require Black and brown leadership to stand up. And to Desiree's point, that means also standing up and having conversations with white allies who are around you and others who may not be allies. And I've heard many times, like, I'm tired of having the same conversations. But the reality is, if we don't drive that conversation and now actually demand change, we'll still be having the conversations another decade from now.
That's right. That's right. I think is what is also interesting is that the conversation quickly transformed to action, right? And so what was that like? Each of your companies responded not just with words, but with deeds in terms of supporting this fund. And what, how did that come about? How did that come about?
Well, it was interesting during that call, the first initial call, we all agreed that we would go back to our CEOs, not to our heads of HR, not to anybody else, but to our CEOs directly. And we were going to make the ask. And we were going to say to them that not only do we want them to be a part of this, to contribute, but that we as representatives of the organization were going to lead the effort on behalf of the organization. And that was different, right? We, many of us obviously have the opportunities to interact with our CEOs and are part of the executive teams and executive committees. But this was a very strategic and direct action-oriented ask, because what we wanted to show and to prove is that, A, we can do the work, that the people that look like us who are leading these not-for-profit organizations know the work better than anyone, and they're the ones who are least resourced, right, to the tune of 2% of every dollar. And so we wanted to directly impact their ability to serve more people in our communities, and we wanted to lead that. We didn't want the philanthropy efforts to be the traditional philanthropy efforts that happen not only in Boston, but that replicate all throughout our cities in America, which is, again, white-led philanthropy. And we wanted to get away from that. We still need the allyship. We still need their collaboration for sure. But in terms of the decision making, in terms of what is approximate need for our communities, we wanted to rely on those organizations and those leaders, Black and brown leaders, to make those decisions. We are not even actually the ones making the decisions as to how to invest and where to invest. We are relying on a lot of those leaders in our communities to tell us that, right? And we are just a vehicle to make sure that the money gets to where it needs to get to in a timely basis. So yes, it was all about action oriented, and we wanted to make sure that it came straight from the top.
Yeah, I mean, I'm scientific. We started, I think, like many companies, with listening sessions after the George Floyd killing. And the first session, when I first heard about George Floyd's murder, it was from a group of employees, what we call our Bridge ERG, which are our Black employee ERG. And someone reached out to me and said, "Can we do something?" And I said, "Let's pull Bridge together. Let's have a conversation." And honestly, my CEO heard about it and said, "I want to come." And then the executive committee said, "Wait, we want to join this." And before you knew it, it was a global, conversation, if you will, with hundreds and hundreds of employees. And then, that sort of is happening at the same time these discussions that we're having around the new Commonwealth Fund was happening. And people really quickly mobilized around, how do we now act, right? We're talking about the feelings and the emotions and everything that's coming after this murder. But now how do we translate that into action? And, as Paul said, it was really easy for us as we were having, the conversations in the Commonwealth to say, we need to get to our CEOs, we need to get to our companies. This is what we can do. We can use our resources, our personal resources, as well as our political clout within our companies and in our communities to drive the action that we need for Black and Brown communities. And so it really, there were some deliberate and strategic actions, but I will say that it was relatively easy given the moment in time because everybody was eager to act. Now I think, we just have to ensure that we find a way to measure the progress and measure the effectiveness of the actions.
So what's the
Right.
elevator? Oh, go ahead, Quincy. I'm sorry.
Sorry. Yeah. So, I wanted to share that, I think, all the companies were at different places. And as Paul said, we all went to our CEOs and senior executives. But I want to also tie in the value of board diversity here, because I did that as well. Obviously, I went to my partner in Bob Rivers, who's, been out there and been a trailblazer in this space. But at the same time, I also went to our board chair at the exact same moment. Our board chair, Deborah Jackson, who is a Black woman. And this is, the value of diversity on your board in terms of understanding what's going on, right? And having a lived experience. And my message to Bob and to Deborah, there was never a question whether we were going to participate. But my ask was, we need to do something revolutionary that we've never done before from Eastern Bank. And that's where we started. And I think that's where those conversations started at all the companies, right? This is a moment, this is 400 years in the making. It's going to take a lot of change, effort, commitment, and financial resources to make a difference. And it's not going to be changed with a single check. So the foundation of what we did with our corporations were going against corporate philanthropy is we asked for multi-year gifts, something that went away 20 years ago in corporate philanthropy. We didn't want corporations just to write a check and walk away. We wanted them to be engaged with us over the years. So our ask was 3 to 5 years. And to that end, I was proud of that connection and that leadership that we had within my organization. And our largest gift out of the foundation had historically been one time a $500,000 gift. So this commitment of $5 million was outsized by 10 that has never been done before. But it was because that connection of the board and our CEO and then the entire board and the management committee aligned to really driving this change.
And what's interesting, Quincy, is it may be coming out of the foundation, but we are clients of Eastern Bank. I noticed last week we got a note from our branch manager, and it says Black Lives Matter in her footer, right? And it has permeated the entire organization. I wonder if you guys are seeing that, Paul and Desiree, in your organizations as well. How empowering it must be for the Black and Brown employees to see your leadership and to know that the company is rallying behind it.
It's empowering. It's empowering certainly for Black and Brown employees to see senior executives with a Black Lives Matter banner on their signature. That's happened at State Street globally. But at the same time, I would tell you that there is some trepidation, right? There's some sort of, I see all of these organizations stepping up. I see all these organizations with a call to action. Is it really going to have an impact? Is it really going to drive change? And so there is this, if you're a Black or Brown professional, you still have a little bit of, wait and see attitude, which is, again, to Quincy's point, it's been 400 years in the making. So you can't expect all of a sudden that we are going to just be, absolutely. And, our companies are doing the right thing. And, yes, they might be doing the right thing, but is it sustainable? Is it really going to change and impact our communities in a very sustainable way? in a long-term way. And that's why these multi-year grants, to Quincy's point, are really critical and important. And yes, there are, different than what many of our organizations have done or stopped doing, but they're necessary. So I think, it's been refreshing to see a lot of our allies come and join in this fight. I was speaking earlier this year with a reporter, and I said, welcome to the party, right? To be able to be cheeky about it, because we've been with this struggle for a long time. This is not new to us,
Right.
And but this is the first time that we actually have some true allyship, where people are actually finally sort of saying, "Hey, I've been under a rock. I don't know what I've been thinking or doing, but I've not been doing enough." And this is it's refreshing to see a lot of our colleagues that and I've had conversations with colleagues that I would have never had, hadn't it been because of this moment, unfortunately, right? We don't want to get there in this way, but we're here now. And I think that, what's important is what we do, not only with this fund, but what we do in general in our organizations to make sure that we have equitable workplaces.
Yeah, for us at Boston Scientific, it wasn't a surprise, so diversity and inclusion is one of our core values. We talk about it a lot. We publish our data, but I think what this did was it unleashed a deeper conversation, right? We sort of have always just gone straight to like the metrics, right? This uncovered the dialogue and the conversations, which leads to, I think, real progress, right? And it's caused us to look internally, in terms of what are we doing with our people, or what are we doing to retain our people? What are we doing to attract people? We can send them through the partnership and the partnership programs, and we do that, but are we as a corporation doing our part to sort of advance people of color throughout our organization? And are we looking at opportunities the right way, right? Are we looking at our job descriptions the right way? Are we looking at, educational requirements the right way, right? Do we think about HBCUs, or are we only thinking about, Ivy League schools? It's caused us to do a deeper, different kind of reflection. And then, because we were hearing that from our employees, and because we were hearing our employees say, and what are we doing outside of Boston Scientific, right? That has led to this broader, deeper conversation about the community and about our responsibility, our corporate responsibility for the communities that we live in. And again, it's something that we've always done. We've always done great work with the Boys and Girls Club. We've also done great work around STEM in our communities. But again, this has led to a very different, deeper conversations where we've talked about not just doing some of those more superficial things, but how can we really move the needle here? How can we do something transformational in our communities so that 5-10 years down the road here, we realize we have made a significant change, and not just the 19 of us in our corporations, but we have created a group of allies and supporters behind us to make this happen.
And I love that theme of allies. And I think each of the three of you have talked about that. And how can we be allies to this initiative?
Well, I think this is an opportunity for the partnership family, the 5,000 alum to really join this effort, personally, individually, but also through your corporations, right? There are 125 companies represented in the different partnership programs. And we need all of those companies to be part of the fund. We need all of you as partnership members of the partnership family to join this effort. And there are going to be many opportunities for you to do so. We are working in a way to bring in all Black and Brown, executives and professionals into this effort. This is not about the 19 of us. There are, many, many, many more of us that are out there that are yet part of this effort. So one of the things that we want to encourage is people to join us, to sign up. And to let us know how they are willing to support, to get their organizations aware of this effort, and to leverage the partnership, to leverage us to get that message out there wherever it's needed. So that's a very simple way to join. You'll see our website, that newly launched website, where you can look and see ways in which you can collaborate with us.
And I think we've skipped one thing, so I want to just come back to this. What's the elevator pitch for the fund itself? What are its goals, and what's the impact that it hopes to see in our Commonwealth?
That's Quincy's area. He's our salesperson. So
this won't get recorded, but the only thing is I never do it the same way twice, Paul. So I'm still going to start to get in trouble, particularly when they're recorded. Okay. Anyway, back to
action.
So, the mission of this fund has really been at the high level about ending systemic racism in the Commonwealth. We were very purposeful that this fund was going to focus across the entire Commonwealth, not just Boston, focus on the Black and brown communities, across our state, but really focus on connecting to the organizations with a focus on Black and brown led organizations that have been left behind from philanthropy, who are doing the great work to break down these barriers within our communities. And so that really requires getting deep. We have the shared and lived experiences of many of the organizations that are supporting the people on the ground in communities. So that's what makes this fund unique. But it's really not about the way corporate philanthropy or philanthropy in general has been done in the past, where the 19 of us sit up and decide where the money's going to go. It's really about being on the ground and then putting lifeblood into these organizations to help them grow and scale their models. They've been scratching and clawing for 2 cents of every dollar for a long time. And so even with the first demonstration grants of $50,000, for many of these organizations that a lot of people across the Commonwealth have never heard of, that's transformational just in that first step to allow them to change. So that's really, the secret sauce that we're working to create here, and to be able to drive in the communities, so that those nonprofits can then take their best practice that they have in Lawrence and move it to another community across the Commonwealth. That's really the goal, to be able to create that system of change that will drive the change that we need in equality.
And taking corporate resources and directing those towards organizations run by Black and brown people, benefiting and servicing Black and brown communities.
Yeah, and I would say we talk about corporate resources a lot, but that's because we're really because we're obviously focused there and changing that giving, but it's also bringing in individuals, it's bringing in other private and public foundations. All of that's come along, and I think Desiree mentioned earlier on, when we first got together, we were all individually in. So it's been our own personal commitments. And so it really is the old, saying of taking a village to be able to drive this change.
Yeah.
Sorry, Desiree.
I was going to say, when we talked about, we were all thinking about what could we do, right? And again, I'll speak personally. I was thinking about my legal skills, right? What should I be doing? Should I quit my job and, do something in the prisons, right? And the beauty of the 19 of us coming together was realizing, you could keep the corporate job that there is something that you can do here, right? You have that personal, wealth, if you will. You have your own personal skills, and then you have your clout within your companies, right? We many of us are on boards. Many of us, we're all in the C-suite of a company. So we had a broader ability to do something than I think we even knew until the 19 of us got together.
Desiree couldn't have said it better. In terms of systems change, what this has prompted, this conversation about the new Commonwealth Fund, and I will speak to State Street specifically, it's prompted our foundation to look at our giving differently, right? And to focus on Black and brown-led organizations, Latinx organizations, and figure out how do we get those investment dollars, right? We always thought of ourselves as driving change through education and workforce development. And then we realized, yes, those are absolutely things that drive more racial equity, but we want to be more targeted here, more specific, and figuring out how we can actually support these organizations that are Black and Brown led, who are the closest to the issues, and how do we invest those dollars from our foundations directly into those organizations. So we are actually into the process of transforming how our foundation does its giving, which in many of our organizations are doing so. So to talk about systems change, talk about systemic change is not just about, you know, the amount that the fund is raising, but it really is the collateral sort of an additive impact that is being had through all our organizations and individuals who are part of it.
Do you need to be at the level where you guys are? Do you need to be a member of the C-suite in order to make a contribution to this fund or to become an ally to the fund?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. $5, $10, $100, whatever you can give is welcome. Every single dollar, most of that dollar will go directly towards these organizations. We actually, one of the beauties of the fund is that we actually got a lot of pro bono allies to come in and provide a lot of support for our non-for-profits. So the overhead that typical foundations or organizations will carry as part of their model, we're trying to avoid a lot of that. And so that more of the dollars that are invested into the fund go directly to these organizations.
And I think that's the example of what we heard earlier about employees driving change within their companies, right? It's, you know, it doesn't matter who, you know, as a Black or brown professional, you have this opportunity to be able to drive change, whether it's supporting the fund or within your own company. You know, we heard it from, you know, Paul and Desiree. You know, I'm proud of our Black and brown employees who have challenged us at Eastern that we need to be even better. And it's been their push that has really led us to embarking on, you know, a mission as we move forward that is really groundbreaking internally within the organization, right? And that hasn't just come from my conversations or our board's conversations. That's come from a teller in the branch, or, you know, one of, you know, someone in human resources, or, you know, a person of color in, you know, our loan operations department saying, we need you to do more. This is what we're seeing. And I think that's the moment, you know, that's what's driving this change, is that it's not just the top of the house feeling that they have all the authority to do it. And it's not just the grassroots, you know, at the bottom trying to push up change at the top. It's really everybody coming together at the same time. That's what's creating the momentum and the opportunity that we have right now.
I agree, Quincy. And I think it's also just a great opportunity for Black and brown employees to feel empowered to step into this leadership role, right? Regardless of your position in the company and in that hierarchy, you know, we all have a role to play here. And, you know, it might mean mentoring somebody, it might mean sponsoring someone, it might mean providing money to the fund, or, you know, volunteering in some way, but we all have a role to play. And I think that, you know, traditionally, a lot of times you will see Black and brown employees trying to downplay what makes us different, because we're trying to blend in and just, you know, make our way through the corporate ladder. And this is an opportunity for people to realize, listen, what makes me different is actually what allows me to step into my leadership here. And I have not just an opportunity, but a responsibility to do that.
I mean, that is a perfect place to, I think, leave our conversation, except for one last piece, which is just give me a shameless plug.
So you want me to say something to the effect that, so we hope that you join us in this effort. Please visit www.newcommonwealthfund.org and see how you can be a part of this effort, either by donating or by joining us as a volunteer, and or making your company aware of the goal. We are far away from the goal of $100 million. And so we need each and every one of you to be leaders with us in this effort.
And I'd say, get involved. Get involved. One of the things that I'm excited about as a byproduct of our fund is highlighting nonprofits that are out there doing great work that many people may not have known about, right? And so just, we'll support them from the funds end, but if you want to get involved in your communities, these are nonprofits who could use the expertise, the support that you could bring to them.
The other thing I would just mention is when you look at the website, you'll see the 4 pillars that we're focused on. And, it's hard to believe that, for any Black or brown individual that at least one of those pillars does not resonate with you. And so I would say, look at those pillars. And as you're thinking about giving money, as you're thinking about volunteering, think about what you can do with respect to one or each of those pillars. And then the other thing I would say is as you give financially, tap into whether or not your company does a corporate match. Most of the companies do that, and it's been a nice way for us to double the money that comes into the fund.
And some of our companies have actually doubled the match to this fund. So I know State Street has done so, Fidelity has done so as well, and other organizations. So if you give, and your company perhaps even will consider doing a 2-to-1 match to the fund.
This year, the demonstration grants that we just recently gave out, we gave out because there was a critical need as a result of COVID. And we wanted to make sure that we gave the funds early and we gave them to organizations whose survival we knew depended on getting funds quickly. Going forward, we will have an application process at least once a year that will allow individuals to submit requests for grants, and then we will be awarding those grants. And what we will be seeking for in those applications is that individuals will fit into one of the 4 pillars that we are seeking to move the needle on. And so those 4 pillars are economic empowerment, policing and criminal justice, healthcare equity, and youth and community engagement, civic engagement. And so, we are looking for organizations to submit applications moving forward in 2021 with respect to one of those pillars so that we can start giving out more grant funds.
Thank you. And I want to thank the 3 of you.
First time probably, but that's
No, that's great. No, that's great.
And I want to thank the 3 of you and the whole 19 founders of the new Commonwealth Fund. What you all represent is the importance of being in the room and the importance of using your voice when you're in that room. As we are trying to change and reverse systemic racism, it is so important that you all, as the folks in that room, the folks who help shape these systems, are there to help expand access and expand belonging. And so I just want to thank you all for being role models. I want to thank you all for the impact that you have already made just by forming this fund and being in a demonstration of the type of leadership and leaders that we have in our community. I am so excited to witness the even greater impact that you all will make with the new Commonwealth Fund in the years to come. And so thank you.
Thank you.
Pat.
Thank you, Pratt.